on being set free. It's a rather long title, as a matter of fact. It could be called On Taking Off the Masks, or You Can't Hide Your Higher Self Forever. You can't hide forever. I think I've indicated to you in the first 3 lessons that in order to really understand the Ten Commandments, you need to know something about Moses. To know that Moses was a transformed person. He had achieved, in some large measure in his experience here in that lifetime, the stature that Jesus demonstrated in his life. As a matter of fact, Moses came to stand with Jesus on the mountain at the time of his own transfiguration. Came with Elias. And, that's quite a feat. You don't see something much more than that in Star Wars. Moses was a special kind of person. And what he was doing was conveying an understanding of the reality that each one of us is that same kind of person. And more than teaching us that we each have that same potential, he brought a system with which each one of us can begin to reach for our own innate capacity to make our spiritual demonstration so that we too can do these seemingly incredible things which are not incredible at all. They only appear to be incredible to us where we are at this time. You have to also understand where the thinking was, the human race, the time of Moses. The Egyptian priesthood, and Moses was an Egyptian priest among many other things, believed that with the power of good you could overcome evil. But for the most part, they did believe that there was something evil to overcome. Now, today we've come to know that there actually is no evil, but only a false belief to overcome. So there's no real evil out there trying to grab you. You don't need an evil. Because if you believe that there is an evil, then that becomes the evil. It's our own thinking that defeats us. You don't need an actual evil force in the universe. And Jesus said, a house divided against itself cannot stand. A universe that is squared off with the good and evil forces. The good and evil forces are within us in the sense that there's a part of us that is trying to remain dormant or static or stagnant and does not wish to break out of its comfort zone. And there's a part of us, the higher self of us, that is speaking to us all the time, urging us onward and upward. And these two seeming forces, but they're not two forces. There's a belief in evil. Let me tell you how that works. Suppose that you believed that there was someone in the basement. Did you ever have that experience? And if you believe there's someone in the basement, your heart will beat with the same speed as if there really was someone down there making noises. You'll have the exact experience that you would have if there was someone in the basement. But there's no one in the basement. But you keep believing that there's someone in the basement. If you believe it long enough, there will be someone in the basement. I promise you that there will be. Our belief will create the thing in which we believe. That which I greatly fear has come upon us. But when it comes, it is not evil. It is merely the remarkable demonstration of the outworking of our own belief system. And so, Moses was teaching his people that all that they needed to do was to change their thinking about themselves and about life and about God. And their experience would change accordingly, and it did accordingly. When you study the Egyptian books, or if you have been to Egypt and have been in the ruins and in the palaces and in the caves that they have, and I've been there, I've been in scores of them, and they have gods with all kinds of heads. They had gods who have the heads of hawks and of serpents and of foxes. Do you think that the higher priesthood believed that God looked like a hawk? No. The upper ranks of the clergy at that time did not think for a moment that a cat could be a god, or that a god would clothe himself in the body of a hawk or a serpent. They knew that these images were merely symbols. The bull, for example, was the symbol for strength and power, and the tiger and the lion were symbols also for strength and power of another kind. The dove was a symbol for peace and diplomacy and so forth. In other words, they were displaying qualities or attributes of the one God, the God that was in all and through all and over all. It's been the custom all through the Christian era to blame the priests of Egypt and Assyria for, as they said, deceiving the people. Why do they not go to the people and tell the people the truth? And I suppose for several reasons. One was that they did not want the people to know too much, but after all, that failure has not just been peculiar to the Egyptian priesthood. It has continued throughout the Christian priesthood over the 2,000 years of Christianity. People in high places have not wanted the people to know too much. But do you know that has suited the people? There's been a tendency for our human consciousness to want to have other people take care of our religious or spiritual responsibilities for us. Is that not true? We've wanted to join something that, in the joining of which, would take care of our responsibilities and would connect us with God and would take us to that special place in the sky when the time came. And Moses was saying to us, it doesn't work that way. He was saying to his own people, it doesn't work that way. He was taking them out of their comfort zone and into the wilderness, causing them to experience events and circumstances that would break them out of their comfort zone, out of their old, self-imposed ways of thinking, out of the traditions. Now, what happened was that over that period of time, they created new traditions that later they had to break out of. But he was causing them to have to reach beyond themselves. You see, there's a tendency for every one of us to fall back into habit patterns that become traditional for us. And in those habit patterns, we lose our conscious contact with God. Nothing is ever new for us. At any rate, there they were, and Moses was trained in the teaching of that day. And you know what happened? He always felt a kinship with his own people, the Israelites. And he was a Jew, although that fact had been concealed due to the experiences that occurred at the time of his birth. But one day he saw an Egyptian beating an Israelite, one of his own people, and here's a wonderful sidelight on the character of Moses. He immediately set upon that man and beat him up. Moses was by no means perfect, and I think I pointed out to you last week that it's wonderful for us that he was not, because we can identify with him. We can identify with this process of growth and change that took place in him as he moved toward a perfection that was incredible in the fact of the things that Moses was able to understand and do as a result of his spiritual growth. But at any rate, at this early point in his career, he had a terrible temper. And he set upon this Egyptian and was so angry that he beat him until he killed him. It was quite a temper for a priest. Now, Moses knew better. But you understand that, because how many times lately have you caught yourself doing something that you knew better than to do? Or just thinking something that you knew better than to think? And do you know what happens to us when we do something that we know we should not do? What's the first reaction? To not get caught. It's not so much that we mind doing what we did, as long as we don't get caught at it. Fess up, you know it's true. So Moses killed this guy. What was his first reaction? High priest. He buried him in the sand so that he would not get caught. Well, he was not practicing the Not only the principle that you shall not kill, but more than that, he was trying to cover it up. And the second commandment that we're going to be talking about this evening is you can't cover it up either. Even if you do it, you can't hide it. These are spiritual realities that are difficult for us to understand. Now, he buried this guy in the sand, and the next day he was walking about again and saw two of his own people quarreling, and he stepped in. Moses had a great deal of trouble keeping his nose out of other people's business. You'll hear more about that in a moment, too. And so one of the guys that was quarreling said, "Oh, are you going to kill me as you did that person yesterday and bury right over there in the sand?" And Moses had one of his early lessons on the fact that you can't hide it. I don't care what you do, you can't cover it up. You simply cannot hide it. It will come back to you. You can't bury it. So Moses knew that his deed was known, and he cleared out of Egypt into the desert. Now, when he got into the desert, he came to a well. And wells are of tremendous importance in those lands because this is the place where there's very little rain, and the well means life itself. It's a gathering place. It's a center of the activity. It's a gossiping place. Very much like railway stations were, or the corner grocery store was in the old days of America in small towns and villages. Now, in the East, the well being a gathering place, and it was the center of life because of the importance of water. And Moses came along and found some girls there, the 7 daughters of a priest who had gone to the well to get the water for the family for drinking purposes and cooking and washing and watering their flock. And some shepherds had come by, and they pushed the girls aside to drive them away so that they themselves could get their water first. And Moses, again, couldn't mind his own business. And so, being a rather husky person, and you know what Moses looks like, don't you? Charlton Heston. Can't you see Charlton Heston laying on those shepherds and saying, "Okay, ladies," and they came up and got the water. And it got Moses in a certain kind of trouble again because their father sent for Moses. Now, he had 7 unmarried daughters. If Charlton Heston comes by out in the desert and you have 7 daughters, what are you going to do? You're going to invite that guy for dinner. And that's what happened to Moses, and before he knew it, he was engaged to and married to the oldest daughter. Well, the Bible is full of such real drama, real happenings. Moses was not a statue by Michelangelo. He was a real, live person living his life like you are, and in the living of his life, discovering this tremendous potential that was within him, and establishing at a much higher level than is ordinary his conscious contact with God, and being shown the true destiny of all mankind, and being given the assignment to be an example. Moses was not an exception. He was an example. Well, always in the Bible, we must ask what the name of the person or the event means. The Bible names always have a meaning. Moses means drawn out of the water. Remember how he was placed on the water at the time of his birth? And we know that water in the Bible stands for the human mind, for the human personality, especially the emotional nature, our human psychology. That purely human part of us is referred to in the Bible as water. And Moses means one who is being drawn out of his purely human personality or identity, one who is being transformed. It was Moses who leads the children of Israel out of Egypt. And so we come to an extremely important symbol in the Bible, Egypt. Egypt in the Bible means limitation. Our belief in matter, time, space, our fear, all the things that clamp us down, the things that make us unhappy and bitter and afraid. All those things that have limited us. Whatever it is that exists in your life, the phenomenon that exists in your life that limits you is the Egypt of you. It's interesting that in the beginning of the Gospel of Matthew, one of the things that we're told about the Christ child is, "Out of Egypt have I called my son." Egypt is always basically the same thing, that human consciousness in which there is no faith in God, in which there is fear. And so Moses was an early demonstration of the Christ consciousness. Jesus was the perfection of that consciousness that must be drawn out of Egypt, out of the water of life. When we're sick or fearful or depressed, there's a tendency for us to say, well, if God will come down and fix it for me, I will believe in God. You see, we don't want to leave Egypt. We want God to come to Egypt to rescue us. If we think that if God will come down and fix us, are we also not saying that God is not here, but there? And is that not the very consciousness that we must be drawn out of? Of course it is. Out of Egypt have I called my son. Out of Egypt have I called my son. Each one of us must be transformed. We must be changed. And we must be changed by the renewing of our mind. And the next of the commandments that I want to share with you is the one that says you shall not kill. Now the commandments are to be taken at their face value, of course. They're binding as such, but that's only the beginning. As rules of conduct, the commandments are, certainly, you shall not do these things, just as you see signs up today in our society. No smoking. You shall not smoke. Or you will see a one-way street with an arrow that is in effect saying, you shall not go down that street in this direction. But if you do, you're in trouble. That's what it really means. If you go down that street, or down a one-way street, the chances are pretty good that you're going to run into someone before you get to the corner, or there will be a policeman there who will give you a ticket. So don't go that way, go this way. That's what the commandments were. Move in the direction that will take you where you wish to go. But more than saying you shall not, the commandments mean you cannot. And so this commandment that says you shall not kill is really and fundamentally an expression of the cosmic law that you cannot kill. And the sooner you find this out, the better it will be for you. But wait a moment. Moses killed a man in a rage, in a situation that was none of his business. And Moses was a priest. Should have known better. Well, certainly, someone who knows better, who kills another person, would be on the wrong side of God. Right? Wrong. Wrong. God lifted Moses up. As a matter of fact, the experience of taking another person's life, or appearing to, was one of the best things that ever happened to Moses. Now, don't go home and say that I told you to do it. No, it's better if you don't work it out that way. But it happened to Moses. And God, infinite intelligence, is always using all of these things that happen to us to our very best advantage. I've known people in my life, especially in counseling, and often women who insisted on destroying their lives through guilt and shame, killing themselves slowly inside over some error committed that they refused to let go of. They would not let the Moses in them be lifted up. Have you known someone who got caught up in his or her suffering, who said, but I should have known better, I did know better, I knew better, and I cannot forgive myself? Well, what does knowing better have to do with it? You did it. Okay? Now let's use it to our best advantage. You can't bury it in the sand. You can't bury your head in the sand, of course. You can't bury your guilt. Sooner or later we must face it and admit it to God, to ourselves, and to another human being. There's simply no other way. Not only can we not kill, we can't even bury our cry. To attempt to do so is to remain in Egypt, in doubt and fear. Everything is known to God, and sooner or later it must be brought to light. And in this process, we are transformed. And this is what it means when it says that Moses killed an Egyptian, but he didn't stay in Egypt. he escaped. And in that process, he came into a higher and closer, more perfect relationship with God. And because of all the negative things that had happened to him, God was able to use him to great advantage. And so it is with you. Every failure that you think you've ever had can be used to your advantage. But if you try to bury them, to pretend that they did not happen, or to believe that they were so serious that you cannot recover, is to separate you from God. Now, we're always trying to kill someone. Not people, of course. Well, we leave that to the characters that we see in the movies today. You don't have to kill anybody. Just go to the movies and they'll do them all off for you. In the streets of our minds, there are certain people that aren't safe. I'll bet you've got one or two characters that every time they walk down the street of your mind, they're in real trouble. Then the scripture is saying you cannot even kill them. You dare not. You must not. You had better not. Or you can do it, but don't do it. It will not work to your advantage if you do it. You know that if you kill someone, they're not dead. They really aren't. No one ever dies from the outside. No one can kill you. No one can kill your character. No one can kill you simply because you simply cannot die. It's as simple as that. You're the life of God expressing as spirit, and that spirit in you simply cannot, and it will not die. Think of how surprised the person was this afternoon who committed suicide, and only to discover that it didn't happen. It didn't happen. I promise you it didn't happen. You cannot take your own life because you will always live. You will always be alive. You may not be in this particular body, but you will be alive, and you will have to come back or at least at some other place, and do all the things that you were trying not to do while you were here. So if we're going to have to do it sometime, why don't we do it now? Get on with that business. No one can kill your peace of mind, or your business, or your reputation, or anything that is yours. You can, but nobody else can. No man or woman has ever yet been destroyed from the outside. There's never been a marriage that was destroyed from the outside. I know you've heard people say, well, he or she destroyed my marriage. Not so. It was destroyed before he or she ever showed up. It always happens from the inside. And so if there's anyone here who by chance thinks that someone else did it to you, they did not. They did not. No one can do that but yourselves. No corporate body was ever yet destroyed from the outside. No political party, no church was ever yet destroyed. Now, there have been many great religions that have withered and died, including the Egyptian religion. It was the great religion of its day. Well organized, powerful, and people thought it would last forever. But it didn't. Life lives and cannot die. You cannot die because God cannot die. You are an individualized expression of God. And this is what Moses was saying. It's what his life was proving. I'm reminded that there's an old proverb that says, in 3 generations from shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves. And what this means is that in business, you've seen those occasions where the grandfather, through a great vision, an idea whose time has come, starts a business. And the son comes along and expands it, and it grows greater. And then the grandson comes along, the 3rd generation, or someone else buys the family business without the wisdom or the hope or without the life. They take the life out of it. They're there to take from it, not to create it from the inside out, and it dies. Nothing just withers away because of forces occurring from the outside. It always happens from within. And I wish that every young person in the world could come to understand this thought, that nothing can ever hurt them but they themselves. That as they go out into their experience, they will meet critics and competitors and even enemies, but They work under people who seem to hamper their advancement. But no one can hurt them but themselves. You can destroy yourself simply by not giving your very best, by making some very foolish mistakes, neglecting your work, by not letting your life express itself. But no one can harm you except you yourself. You're the only person on this planet that can do this. Many of us try to kill the life in ourselves by disappointment and discouragement. How many times have you heard someone say that they tried, they gave it their very best, but it just didn't work, and so what's the use? And in times of depression, people even go so far as to try to kill their bodies, but it doesn't work. When you get below the surface of the meaning of this great law of life, you come to understand that what it really means is that it's a humble mind that finds God, a humble heart that gets its own demonstration. That in humility of spirit, we come to understand that we know very little. Lord, I believe, but help my unbelief. I need a new heart, a change of outlook, a change of feeling. I know that I cannot find God if I think that I'm very important, but I also cannot find God if I think I'm not very important. It's being in that other place, that middle place. If I have any feeling of resentment against any other person, if there's any human being in the world whom I would like to see punished, or whose difficulty or whose fault I would rejoice in, then I've shut myself away from God, just as a person would who burrows into a deep cave and shuts himself away from the daylight and cannot get it again until he comes out. But remember that you cannot die, you cannot kill, that the life that's in you will always be there. If all that appears to you to be is a flickering spark, it is there. And the moment that you're really ready to bring it to life again, it will burst forth into a flame that will consume the darkness, and that flame will lift you and move you and carry you out of the problems that you have demonstrated in your life. It does not matter what they might have been. You have never had anything happen to you that is so bad that the spark of life cannot lift you into a new orbit just as quickly as you can blink an eye or snap your finger. That's how powerful the life force in you is. It will not die. It cannot. Now, it's important for you and me to know that our role in life is precisely the role of Moses. He was an example that we are to emulate or to follow. And his assignment was to demonstrate mankind's spiritual condition, to give, to show, to prove the reality of our higher nature. With that in mind, listen to the next commandment. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. Now we've reached the place where we go deeper into the study of the laws of life, the 10 Commandments. And the commandment, you shall not bear false witness, is one of the most important of the commandments when we properly understand it. Now, its obvious meaning is true. Don't tell lies about people. And you were taught that before you ever got into grade school. Did anybody ever catch you with the cookies and you said that Johnny stole them and gave them to you? Because you hadn't caught in the cookie jar. And it was not the cookies that got you in trouble. It was the lying that got you in trouble, wasn't it? And your mama or somebody said, you mustn't lie. Well, the law is that you can't lie. And I've just been telling you about that great law, because even if you lie, if you do the thing that you do not wish to be known, even if you bury it, in time it will be revealed to you. It will come out. You cannot hide anything in this universe. It will come back to haunt you. Let me ask you, has it ever failed? And even if it hasn't come back yet, if you did it, haven't you lived in fear that you would get found out? That's why it's so important to admit our defects, our shortcomings, to admit to God and to ourselves, to another human being, the exact nature of our wrong, so that we bring them into light and dissolve them and take the negative power of anxiety and fear away from them. And that's the first or lowest level of understanding of this great principle. You shall not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Even the very best people, the good ones, often bear false witness against their neighbors. Take politics, for example, just for an example. Many people have a slight tendency to exercise criticism of the other side. Now, I'm not talking about the fact that a politician shouldn't say, well, I think my party's the best, and the platform or the program that I have that I'm going to bring to the people in this community or this nation is better for you. That's a part of politics. But when the politician begins to look for slanderous things to say about the opponent, you can say that John Smith's policy is bad and that it will ruin the country, but don't say that he's a crook. See, there's a difference. Or that he beats his wife. When, if the truth be known, he doesn't beat his wife, she beats him. Don't bear false witness. Now, religions and ministers have been, over the centuries, have been the worst perpetrators of failing to understand this principle. How many times have you heard ministers speak about other religions? I heard someone giving me down the river on the J.P. McCarthy morning show the other day. There was a minister talking about me and the church of today. And the fact of the matter is that this guy's never been here. He's never met me. He has no idea. Well, he has a concept in his mind, but what he said had absolutely no validity from my point of view or from any reality with which I'm aware. And therefore, this person was bearing false witness. Now, I hope you don't think I'm upset about it, because I'm not, because I really smiled. Have you noticed that when someone bears false witness against you, there are others who come up to defend? J.P. was defending me, J.P. McCarthy. I said, come on, J.P., come on. It's wonderful how it works. We have to apply this principle of not bearing false witness right throughout our lives. It's very important in practice, because whatever you say about any other person will happen to you. Whatever you do toward another person will come back to you. If you spend your life doing good for other people, it will come back to you. Oh, there have been men and women who devoted themselves over the years of their lives to helping people. And one of the great principles is to do your good works anonymously, passing it on, taking no credit. Don't do it for the credit, just do it. Do your good works in secret, and your Father who sees will reward you openly. It will come back to you. You simply cannot lose in this universe. Whatever you give will come back to you. When you tithe, it will come back to you. Give a tenth of what you earn to that facility, to that cause, to that religion. That is the source of the teaching that has been important to you. And I promise you, it will come back to you multiplied by a factor of 10. That is a universal principle. It's a law. It's the law of karma, the law of comeback. But if you lie about another person, or if you think unpleasant thoughts about another person, if you're constantly vilifying another person in your mind, if there's someone that you resent or dislike, go to them quickly, Jesus said. Go to them in your own mind and make your peace with them, because if you don't, it will come back. You cannot bear false witness for the simple reason that whatever it is that you do will become a reality. It will not be false. Did you follow that? It will become real. It will become the reality of your own experience. In the 7th chapter of Matthew, verses 1 and 2, Jesus said, "Judge not that you be not judged. For with the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged. And the measure you give will be the measure you get." Why do you see the speck in your brother's eye, but do not see the log that's in your own? Or how can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, and there's a log in your own? You hypocrite. The word hypocrite means one who feigns beliefs, feelings, or virtues that he or she does not possess. You who feign to have wisdom, understanding, or love, and you do not have it. That's really what he's saying. So, before you are at all concerned with what's happening in someone else's life, become aware of yourself. Why? Why is it so important? Because you are an individualized expression of God. Do you remember in the first part of this lesson when I was talking about the symbols that the Egyptians used for gods, the heads that symbolized the special qualities or virtues of the Spirit that is God? Well, you and I, as individualized expressions of God, must begin to be the true witness of God. Everything that we think and say and do must in time begin to conform to the truth that is in us. And so what this law says, you shall not bear false witness. You must bring yourself in tune with the wisdom of God, with the love of God, with the power of God, so that your life becomes a living reflection of all of the qualities that are in you, in your higher self. And when you lie, when you cheat, when you steal, when you condemn, when you are angry, when you're upset, you are bearing false witness. And except it will not be false, although it is an erroneous demonstration of your true nature, it will come back to haunt you. It will become your reality. Why do you think that Jesus went into a temple and turned over the tables, the money changers, drove out the sellers of doves? It's been said, well, it was a house of prayer, and he was quite upset because the people were there defiling that temple. Do you know that he never cared for that temple one whit? He didn't think that God was more in that temple than God was outside the temple. He knew that God was everywhere and in every person, and he said so. What he was talking about, he used the temple as a metaphor for the human mind. And he said, you must go into your own mind, into your own being, and drive out all of the false gods, all of the negatives, all of those things that are defeating you. You must go in there and take an inventory. That's what he did. He took an inventory, came back the next day. He went and looked around and saw all the things that should not be in the temple, and came back the next day and drove them out, which is precisely what you and I must do. And what this means is that we must clean up our act. That's all it means. That if you're going to establish your conscious contact with God, you have to clean up your act. You know, John the Baptist baptized people, didn't he? He dunked them in water. And some people came to believe that because he did this, they were saved. And if you weren't baptized, you would not be saved. Now, I want you to think about that for a minute. Here's this universal God who has created a magnificent universe and is going to save some people because they get dunked in some dirty water. If you don't think that river over there was dirty, you check it out sometime. It was symbolic of the fact that we must be cleansed. We must clean up our act, our thoughts. Otherwise, we will be bearing a false witness. Let me give you a metaphor that strikes me. Some 15 years ago, when I came here to this church, which was another church, it was a small, bankrupt building with the plaster falling off the ceiling, the lights that didn't work. I mean, it was just not a very pleasant place. And we knew that if we wished to grow, if we wished to change, that we had to start right where we were in that building and transform it. We had to make it into the very best place that it could possibly be. And so we set out to do that. And over the years we did it. As a matter of fact, the last week that we were there, we were still working on it after we had sold it. And we turned it into a gem of a facility. But it was still the same kind of building that it was when we got there. It was no larger. It did not suit us, fit our needs. We knew that we had to create a facility like this, and we have done so. The 22 acres here, it's a lovely place. Why? Because this place is more a reflection of the Spirit of God that's in all of us than that other small building was. Are you following me? Now, when you come here, I want you to look at the property, how well groomed it is. It's as though someone took a pair of scissors and went down that fence line. Have you noticed how that is? We do our very best to have this place in every aspect and every part of it be a reflection of the highest and best that we can demonstrate in a property. But this church is nothing more than a metaphor for your life and for my life. We want this church, though, to be a true witness of the Spirit of God that's in each one of us. That's how your life is supposed to be, a true witness. And as we join together in the spirit of harmony, creating and supporting this facility and all that takes place in it, can you not see that we are beginning to bear true witness in our own lives? And that we're inspired in ways that we could not otherwise understand? It really is what happens here. It's putting on that mind that was in Christ Jesus and that was in Moses. It's a law, it's a principle. Jesus said, if you've seen me, you have seen the Father that's in me, but the Father is greater than I. And this cleansing process is so necessary. And you might say, well, I recognize that I'm full of imperfections, perhaps some serious ones. But with the help of God, I will clean them up. And the moment that you make that decision, it begins to happen to you so that you begin to be the true witness, the true light. Becoming willing to look at and to change every facet of your life, to examine what you think about God and clean it up. What do you think about yourself? What do you think about the devil even? Don't leave anything out. Yeah, I know you probably were taught that the devil was a person with horns and tail and dressed in crimson tights. The devil is really our own small self, our self-defeating concepts, ideas, and fears that are always speaking to us. Revise your idea of the Bible and of your fellow person and of your responsibilities, of your whole belief system. You are an individualized expression of God, and you are put here to be the true example, to be the light of God, so that all that you do and say and feel and think reflects God's glory. Edwin Markham said it in these words: we men of earth have here the stuff of paradise. We have enough. We need no other stones to build the temple of the unfulfilled, no other ivory for the doors, no other marble for the floors, no other cedar for the beam and dome of man's immortal dream. Here on the paths of every day, here on the common human way is all the stuff the gods would take to build a heaven, to mold and make new Edens. Ours the stuff sublime, to build eternity in time. That's what Moses was saying in his life. It's what he did. It's what the Ten Commandments are. It's all you need. You are the right stuff. It's just the way you use it that makes the difference. And that's the way it really is.